I'm Roswell Encina. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Library of Congress, and on behalf of the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, we welcome you to the largest library in the world, the Library of Congress. Yes. We are very excited to have all of you here tonight on this very special evening to celebrate this very wonderful film, long time coming. So this is part of the library's year-long celebration of Baseball Americana. We hope that most of you visited our wonderful exhibit on the second floor. And we just opened it like a week before the All-Star game, and we're very proud of it. It showcases the library's amazing baseball collection. Most of you probably don't know that the library has the largest baseball collection in the world, so we're very proud to show it off. But most of all, the purpose of the exhibition is to showcase what baseball means to all of us. I think everyone remembers the first time they walked into a baseball stadium, or the first time they touched the bat at their local baseball park, or the first time you heard the click of the bat when you were watching the game. I think we could all relate to that, and that's what we're trying to do, that baseball is a community, that baseball is a unifier, and it brings all Americans together. And we believe that this exhibition does that, and we're very honored that you're all here to see it as well. We also want to welcome members of Congress who are here tonight, Representative Stephanie Murphy, Representative Matt Gaetz, Representative Dennis Ross, Representative Paul Tonko, Representative Bill Flores, Representative Lou Correa, and Senator Sherrod Brown. We thank you for your support, and for any members of Congress that I missed, thank you for joining us tonight. Now it is my honor to welcome the producer of the film, Ted Haddock.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is really, really special for us. Here with a lot of family. My wife, Kelly, you've probably seen our kids here. We have cousins, aunts, and uncles, my dad and mom, Ed and Edie, and I am grateful to all of you, DC friends and colleagues and members of Congress for showing up and showing your enthusiasm about this story. So I'll just make a couple quick remarks, and then we'll just roll the film because it does speak for itself. In case anyone is not quite sure what it's really about, this story tells the film tells the story of the first racially integrated Little League game in the South. This was in 1955, happened in Orlando, and so when we discovered the story about 3 years ago, we realized that no one had ever really told the story in any significant way. So as we pressed into it, we realized not only is it a great story, but it is symbolic of what's possible. And so our foundation decided to go for it and to make this into a film. And so our hope is that this film will honor the players and their families who participated in this game and the coaches, and that it will be a lever for positive conversation about what we can do together. So the film's about an hour and a half long. It's a feature documentary. And we'll have a Q&A session afterwards with myself, the director, Jon Strong, who's also here tonight, and two players from the teams that you'll see. Reverend Freddie Augustine is here tonight, and Stuart Hall. So we're excited to have a conversation afterwards, and we'll hope you'll stick around for that.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy and ask her to come to the stage to welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Boy, gosh, I hope you all enjoyed that movie as much as I did. You know, for me, it reminds me of a couple of things, that the power of storytelling is so incredible in touching people's heartstrings and bringing to life conversations that, as I think one of the people on the documentary said, that we should be able to have without shame. And so it was incredible to watch the movie. They did an incredible job, and I'm just so grateful that you all chose to spend an evening with us. I'm looking forward to this discussion. But I wanted to just share a couple of things that make this particularly personal for me. You know, my son is 7, and a couple years ago he started t-ball. And I had never really paid attention to baseball before, despite the fact that my husband owns a company that sells baseball and softball gear. But I went to my first t-ball game, and I saw these little kids in uniform with helmets too big for them, uniforms slightly too big for them, not sure which way to run when they hit the ball, but just really, I think, growing into who they are and feeling so much pride and developing that sense of teamwork and developing confidence and a sense of self. And I thought to myself, who needs the majors? T-ball is where it's at. And I think you see a little bit of that here in this movie. Here are two teams in the 1950s, really young people unaware necessarily entirely of what is going on in the social backdrop of what it is that is happening in this country, but wanting to play ball, wanting to have that sense of accomplishment, of hearing the crack of that bat, of winning, and of teamwork. And it's just so incredibly inspiring. And I think the other piece is, the documentary closed on young children. And I think about, the country we're living in, the responsibilities we all have as engaged citizens and as elected officials. And I think about how it's about that generation. It's about this upcoming generation, a generation that is going to be majority minority. So these race conversations that happened in the 1950s will probably continue to happen in this country, and maybe just in a different context. But how do we do what they did, which is to come together and do so in a civil way, to see each other as humans first, and to understand that it takes knowing somebody, having the interaction, to be able to inform the conversation, and that conversation needs to be as uplifting and as civil, despite the differences, as some of the conversations that we saw tonight in this documentary. So I'm just thrilled to represent Orlando, where this historic event happened, and where I think we continue to set an example of what it's like to be a diverse community that comes together in tough times, whether it's in the aftermath of a mass shooting, or whether it's the joy of a victory on the soccer field, which is happening a little less seldomly, a little less frequently this season, but we'll get it back. But to come together as a community, having tough conversations, but loving one another first and foremost as human beings. So very proud to represent Orlando, proud to be able to welcome you all here, and can't wait to hear from our distinguished panel. Thank you so much.
Well, we are going to continue the conversation, but I would be remiss to not acknowledge the other members of Congress that are here today. We thank you for your presence and for your service to our country. Thank you to your families that joined us today. We appreciate your support as well. We also want to acknowledge the Edward E. Haddock Jr. Family Foundation and Common Pictures, 3 and 2 Sports, and all of the organizations that helped to put this film together and supported us in this. So thank you all. On stage with us today, we have Edward E. Haddock II. This is Ted III. Sorry. Affectionately known as Ted, and Ted is the producer of Common Picture, this film, and founder of Common Picture Films. We have Stuart Hall from the Orlando JCs. Kiwanis. Sorry about that. Reverend Freddie Augustine with the Pensacola JCs. And Jon Strong, who directed this film. So we're going to kick off the conversation with a question to you, Ted. You produced this film. I heard the laughs, I heard some sighs. What do you hope to accomplish with Long Time Coming?
Thanks. Well, from the beginning, we had 3 goals, and this is something we discussed with Jon and his team, who I do want to acknowledge are here. We have some of the Strong Films team is here. Jon Strong, do you know?
John King and Ty Arnold, way up there.
You guys
Producers.
up there? I see you in the back. So quick applause for the team. We had 3 goals. One was to tell a really great story, a story that deserves to be told. And secondly, we wanted to honor the players and their families and the coaches who made this game possible. And if you think of the context, some of it was shown in the film, but we didn't go into a lot of detail about the context. This was in the early days of the civil rights movement. A lot of times we look at the Montgomery bus boycott as sort of a watershed event, so this game predates sort of the national entrance of Reverend King and Rosa Parks. This was a few months ahead of that. This is a week or so ahead of the murder of Emmett Till. And so the young players and their families and the coaches who made this game possible really stepped out to do so in an extremely polarized context, which says a whole lot about them. So we wanted to honor the players and their families. And thirdly, we wanted to take an opportunity to tell a really winsome story about things going the way they should have gone, and to be able to talk about race in America in a really positive and constructive way. So we're already seeing the opportunity to do that. We're getting some good traction with distribution, and having you all here tonight for this conversation is really a special opportunity for us.
Thanks, Ted. And Jon, you directed the film. Tell us, what did you learn over the journey of making Long Time Coming?
Just watching it even tonight, it's just the opportunity to look into someone's eyes and hear their story. And whether you agree with them or not, I think it changes your experience. You get to live through their eyes. And so I think it taught me empathy for multiple opinions, some that I disagree with, some that I agree with. And my main goal was just to make myself and everyone else feel it.
I think you did a great job at that. Would you all agree? And so I have the same question for you, Reverend Augustine and Stuart Hall. I'll give you a quick second to think about it. So I guess you're going to go first, Stuart. The question is, what would your 12-year-old self say about the man that you've become today?
Damn.
Well, I think that he would be very proud that that we made a decision, the 12 ball players made that decision to play that game. You know, you heard John Rivers say, no one should take a boy's dreams away. Well, if we had decided not to play, it had done the same thing to us. But I do remember back then there was a lot of stuff going on, and it came down to a vote of 12 young boys to play that game or not. 100% we're playing the game. And without it, how would we ever had such a wonderful story as we've got in this film? Now, y'all may not know this, but that film is completely unscripted. It's all natural. And it's pretty obvious there was no makeup artist on any of us either. If I had it to do over again, I'd lose some weight, Ted, before I do it. I promise you that. But I can assure you that it has been a joy of my life to participate in this thing and get back and meet these wonderful fellows from Pensacola. We have struck up a friendship that's way that it ought to be all the time. Should have been then. Another thing I discovered in this, I happened to see on YouTube recently something a fellow named Jesse Goldberg made a song about the 50s, and it's called Once Upon a Time. And it's all about my time and growing up. And you might have noticed all of us in the film, all the white guys are saying, what a wonderful time it was, the 50s, to grow up. Oh, it was great. But in this song that he sings and all the movie he's having there, you know what I noticed? There wasn't one black face in the whole thing. And I got to thinking, it was a great time to grow up, but not for everybody. So, additionally, I'd like you to know that this is the 9th time that I've seen it. It's the 9th time I've cried in it.
Thank you, Stuart. Same question, Reverend Augustine. What would your 12-year-old self say about the man that you've become today?
Well, my 12-year-old self would say about the man I've come today is partially because of what I experienced in 1955. This is the second time, well, this is the third time I've seen this movie, and it has brought tears from my eyes, and it has made me feel different on the inside. And I just believe, I could be wrong, I've been wrong several times, but I do believe that the people that are here tonight, they witnessed a powerful documentary, probably one of the most powerful documentaries they ever witnessed before, as a result of Stuart and I being 12 years old. You know, I'm so glad that we had a chance to bond this relationship. I want to thank the Haddock Foundation and Ted for putting this together, because he's not the first one to try to do this, but he's the first one that succeeded, and I want to give him credit for that. And so as a result of being a part of that team, I would really like to give thanks to our coaches, even though they are not here tonight. They are deceased, but because of the men that we become, they had a lot to do with it. But you just go back and think about it now. They gave special time to us that they could have gave to their families to make us what we are today. So it's because of those guys and the team members, along with the guys from Orlando, make me what I am today. Thank you.
Thank you. I keep hearing a resounding message about Congressman Murphy talked about it, and I'm hearing the same thread for you all about really investing in others' lives and having a seat at the table and engaging others across the aisle from you. Ted, what have you learned from this experience in making this film?
Well, a lot, but I guess just to keep it brief, you see this theme in the storyline as well, but one of the early edits we showed, someone made the comment, the they is overwhelming. You hear the word they a lot, and you can, it's very powerful. And I think where we end up is it's a we. And the reality is we need to, I think, what I believe is we need a new construct to see ourselves in the world. And there is no they, it's only us.
We're going to open the floor. If any of you have questions, there are mics out in the audience. Please just raise your hand, and one of our staff members will take your question. You have...
When the two teams got back together when they were seniors, was that at your behest, or was it their idea?
I'll answer if that's okay. So privately, the film crew had discussed, well, wouldn't it be great if we had a reunion? And so that's on our minds, but we didn't suggest it. We wanted to develop the relationships naturally, and I'm so glad we didn't say anything, because if I remember correctly, I think it was you, Stuart, I think it was you and maybe your teammates together said, you know, when the Pensacola team came down here the first time in 1955, that was a hard trip. That predates interstate highways. There was no I-4. There was no I-95 coming down through Florida. So you had to take back roads through little towns, and it was a much longer drive, and it was a more threatening drive. And so the team said, I think it's our turn to go up and pay our respects. So it was completely self-generated by the players, and we helped facilitate that.
Thank you, Bill. You can do it.
You can do it, buddy.
What makes you so brave?
So what make us so brave?
Yes.
Well, because we completed the test. So by us going to Orlando, as you heard Ted mention a few minutes ago, in 1955, there was no interstate driving. And just the idea of pulling into a service station, at that particular time, they had 5 and only 1 would allow us to use their bathroom and drink from their water fountains. So that was a tremendous task at itself. So by us persevering, and we made it to, and I should never forget, because we made our first major stop at Florida A&M University, there where we had dinner. And I remember that's the first time I ever had a short thigh and a drumstick cooked together. So that let me know that I was in the right place, going the right way.
Stuart, I want to make sure that you take time to answer this question as well, because your parents and the people who were behind the Orlando team also had things that they were risking and putting on the line as well. So.
And even today,
Correct.
making this film,
Yeah.
you know, it's awkward somewhat.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have a really good answer for you on that. You know, I was 12 years old. I hardly remember what I did last week, so I'll tell you. So,
People stand up calling it right.
yeah. But you know, when I think back, while I was growing up in Orlando in 1955, you've heard how wonderful it was, small town. I have marvelous memories. But it's only been recently that I've learned that only 20 miles west of Orlando, some of the greatest atrocities ever had been imposed upon young black men. And we didn't know. I don't know why we didn't know. I'm not even sure my parents knew, but a lot of terrible things were going on. In fact, Freddie, when you guys came down from Pensacola, you went through some of those very, very dangerous areas. I think the Lord had his hand on you because it was not a good time. Just never knew it, because we were on one side of town and everybody was on the other side of town. But when it came to that ball game, it just seemed natural to us. I've tried to say, were we nervous? Were we anxious about anything? Were my parents concerned about me playing against a black team? I don't ever remember that. It's just somehow something transcended that day. Something special happened. It was just very natural.
It's a great question. Thank you.
How did this project originate? I mean, Reverend, you mentioned that other people had tried this before, but this was the one that succeeded. So how did this come about and go from it? You know, where did the idea come, and how, and from where did the idea then become a reality?
Okay. So the foundation that I work for was interested in learning more of the civil rights history in Orlando. So we started a lot of research about that over 3-4 years ago. And in the process of that, we discovered about this game. One of the local city leaders mentioned it, and most people don't know about this game. They're starting to learn now through the film, but if anyone knows about it, it was like, oh, I think there was some special thing. So we had to do a lot of research. We were interested in learning the intersection of sports and civil rights. And so, like a lot of towns in the South, Orlando has the same story, that it was sports really that made the first sort of nick in the wall of segregation, and later we saw that wall come down. So yeah, it was just deciding it was important to learn and trying to find out, doing the research.
You know, what I would like to say is that I thought it was an awesome documentary. In fact, one of the best I've ever seen. I can relate to the boys playing baseball back then because I played the 12 and under Little League Baseball, the 14 and under Little League Baseball here in DC. And I know the feeling that they have when you just want to compete. It didn't matter who you competed with, you wanted to have that experience. And like some of the players who went on to do Vietnam and all of that stuff, same here, I did the same thing. But I can always go back and look at this documentary and in my own life, and I could just see so much resemblance. My question to the players, I was telling the Reverend that during this social event that although I played a lot of baseball, I only recall one good game. I was a pitcher, and I pitched very well that day. But I could never repeat it from that day. But I do have that day to remember. But anyway, to the players, the white players, what did you all feel like when the black players came to play you all? I know you mentioned that you weren't anxious or what have you, but what was going through your mind? What were you processing leading up to taking the field that day?
So I think the question was, how did you feel leading up to the game, Stuart?
Say it again.
How did you feel leading up to the game?
You mean the emotions that I went through? That's a wonderful question, and I've asked the other fellows on the team, how did you feel? And none of us have been able to come up with anything that says we were nervous or anxious about the game. For some reason, we just felt it was the next ball game to play. All the things that were going on were above us. Coaches, the mayor, and the city council, and Little League headquarters. We're just a bunch of 12-year-old boys that want to play a ball game. And that's all I remember about it. We played the game, and we won that game, focused on the next one, and we lost it. The umpire made a bad call, or we'd have been in Williamsport.
How telling is that, though? Just one ordinary decision can make an impact on our society. So thank you, Stuart.
You know, I would like to make just a side comment, if I might. If you notice, this film ends on a really happy note, but it doesn't give you an answer. What I have learned from it is that it's given the opportunity for people to sit down and have a discussion. I've shown it twice to a group of friends of mine, and I've been overwhelmed at their reaction to it. They want to talk. They want to talk about the issue. I've seen them, their hands trembling as the tears poured out of their eyes, probably thinking about their young life and maybe they mistreated someone. And we got a chance to heal it, but it's like Gary Sheffield said, it's a little drop in the bucket at a time, and I kind of feel like that's been our drop in the bucket.
Thank you, Stuart.
What made you want to play baseball?
The question is, what made you want to play baseball?
She must be talking to you.
Well, during the time we were playing baseball, that was the only thing we had to do that was constructed. Baseball was constructed, and I want to tell you, it kept me out of trouble. It kept me out of trouble, and it made me who I am today. Good question.
Thank you.
I'd like to first say that was an awesome documentary, and I really, really enjoyed it. So my first question would be for each of you gentlemen. When you talked about the number of people that came to the game, do you think that they were there for encouragement, or do you think that they were there sort of for intimidation? And then for the other team, did you bring reinforcements when you came from Pensacola? And then
Well,
my
I'm
last
gonna answer
question
that
is how can I see it again? Because I think my husband would really enjoy it. So.
No, we didn't bring any reinforcement. We just came to play baseball. Yeah, that's what we were looking forward to. We never thought outside the box, per se, that something would happen. It's always a chance for something to happen. Even when we leave here tonight, it's possible that something could happen. But we came, expecting good things to happen, and that was to get a chance to play the game. Because our leaders that put this together had already taken care of all of the logistics. So all we had to do was follow their instructions, and we know that everything worked okay.
I think there's a chance 1,000 people might have intimidated us. We never had a crowd of that size before, stacked 3 and 4 deep along each fence, and a lot of noise and activity going on. Normally, there's 50 people at a ball game. So I think it might have affected us more than your team.
I have to imagine people maybe wanted to see something happen if something bad was going to happen. So that's my thought.
Hi, how are you guys doing? It's right here. I just wanted to say thank you so very much for actually bringing this documentary for our eyes and our ears and our hearts. And I just wanted to ask the young gentleman, white gentleman, the player, you made a statement about Black Lives Matter. I just want to know, do you get it?
All right, I really appreciate that question. I'm going to use a term that's used here in Washington quite often. There are some things that I'd like to walk back a little bit on it. Let me tell you, I think I can explain it to you this way. I'm all about unity. I'm all about finding a way for us to do this. And I feel like every time we develop another organization, it becomes divisive. And I see that in a lot of different kind of ways. And I don't know what it is. I felt like for a long time, the best way that we could do it is there's an organization already built, and it's called the church. I kind of think that's one of our great hopes. And when we keep splintering out and it draws us further apart, that's just my view. And that's why I said what I did. I want something that says we all matter, all lives matter, and let's work towards that kind of unity.
Thank you, Stuart. I do want to walk back for a second because the question was posed, and I'd like to hear the answer and for everyone to hear. How can people see this film? What's next for the film? I know that question was posed, and so we want to talk a little bit more about what's next for Long Time Coming.
Sure. Just real quick. So we have a website, longtimecoming.film. We're also on social media. So the best way to find out where to see the film is on our website. And so we have a list of screenings that are scheduled now through the end of the year. We have more to announce soon that we can't mention publicly yet. But so that's sort of sparse. We're hoping to have more soon. But I guess the short answer is we're working with a distributor right now to come up with a plan. So you'll be hearing more about it. You can follow us on social media, online. Likely we'll have a deal with an online distributor, maybe Netflix or something like that, early 2019. Between now and then, we're going to have a limited theatrical release in select cities. So do check our website, follow us on social media, and you can find out when it will be available in your area.
Thank you. I see an urgent hand in the back. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hello? Okay. First of all, my name is Sidney Miller. I'm from Pensacola. I left Pensacola in 1949 when I finished high school, went to FAMU, and in 1955, I went into the Army as an officer. Pensacola was a place that I realized as a young man that if I were going to be anything, I had to get the hell out of there. I called my mother to tell her that I was not going to spend the rest of my life in the Army because I didn't want anybody to tell me what to wear every day. And she was very upset, but she told me, she says, oh, don't worry about that. You can come back home. I'll get you a job teaching school, and you can stay at home. You don't have to cook. You don't have to do anything, but you have a place to stay and everything. I said, no, I'm not going to do that, Mother. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but it ain't going to be that. And, well, I have spent my last 60 years in the entertainment business. I have a magazine called Black Radio Exclusive that has all of the black radio stations in America reporting, and we became the Black Billboard, letting everybody know what was happening from the black side of music. And I'm directing this question to Ted because I want him to do for the music industry what he did for baseball. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Hello, everyone. So my question is directed to the brother who was on the stage, who was a player. Thank you, Reverend Augustine. Sir, I want to thank you for being here and for what you've done. As a youngin', I can appreciate that I don't understand what you've been through. I'm not sure if it was you, but one of your colleagues on film mentioned, growing up, you were forced by Jim Crow to not use the same restrooms, the same water fountains. You couldn't enter through the front door. And especially being here in DC, all of you've seen over this time. My question to you is, what was it like, and has it been like, growing up under Jim Crow and such severe segregation and racism to now where we've had a black president and so much? And what kind of words of encouragement can you give to us young folks as we see DC backsliding quite horrifically in the rest of this country, almost getting closer and closer to what the time that Chief came from? If you would, thank you.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Well, first of all, I need to start by saying, if you don't become a part of the solving process, then you become a part of the problem. And for everybody that is here tonight, I don't have to label them 1, 2, 3, 4 and say these are the issues that we need to face pertaining to black people. Because literally, we're the last hired and the first fired. So I want what every white person wants. In fact, I want you to make the list, and I want to sign it because I know it's all good. But we have to educate our people. We have to educate our people and let them know that racism is a learned behavior. You don't come, or you aren't born with racism. It's taught. And so when we go out into society and we have a chance to mingle with people, then we know we like the same things. You like a BMW? I like a BMW too. You like a big house? I like one too. So don't try to keep me from obtaining that because of the pigmentation of my skin. If I educate myself, then I'm able to qualify regardless of what has been said. I see it every day. People wonder, how you do this? Well, the reason why I'm able to do this is because I've educated myself. And that's what we have to do, is become educated. And so when we become educated, then they might not accept us, but we can get in the door. But without the education, you won't be able to get in the door. So you got to fight for it. In fact, that's why I value my education so much now. I went to a predominant black school, high school, elementary school, and we had good teachers then that loved us. There was no such thing as time out. They didn't play that. You learn because they wanted you to learn because they knew exactly what we were facing before we ever faced it. And so that's why they work so hard teaching us. So that's what we have to get back to, being educated, to be able to learn how to discern between what is right and what is wrong. That's our only key.
Thank you. Good answer. See another hand in the back. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Sean Trapp. I'm also a graduate of Florida A&M University. My question is directed to Ted and Jon. What difficulties did you have producing or creating, making the film?
I'm sorry. Raise your hand. I was trying to spot. There you go. Okay. What was the did you get
What
the question?
difficulties did we have making the film?
Do you want to
I'll start.
answer? Go ahead.
It's a lot of people on both teams. And to show all of their experiences, when you interview anyone, a lot of it is boring. I mean, honestly, right? And so to choose the right pieces that show honestly who these people are, I had no desire, I liked every one of these guys that we interviewed, and I didn't have a desire to hurt them. I also had a desire to show the truth. Somewhat objectively, somewhat subjectively. So I think it was very hard to, every one of these guys we interviewed 2 hours, 2 long hours, and to cut that down into an hour-and-a-half piece of all these people into something that I think is moving was very freaking hard, and it took a long time. I was very, very tired and burned out. Past that, it was just finding the story, because we have all these people. What is the story? We have all these interviews, and cool, all these, nice old men and their histories. What's the story? So it just took us a long time to really find that. And, the first time we showed the film, it was a bad film, objectively. And the next 2 or 3 times, it was a bad film. And now I think it's a good film. So, man, it was so painful. But I would say that most of the hardship did not come from the interviews. It was making something hopefully beautiful out of, some raw product. So that's my answer.
I'll just give a quick addition. I think everything you said is absolutely true. There were a lot of challenges, but it was one of those things where it was just meant to be. Like, I know that sounds sort of corny, but the challenges that I was most concerned about took care of themselves. First of all, we had to find all the players. Who were they? They weren't all mentioned in the articles. So we had to find one, and that was kind of hard to do. And then we got to find another one. And then we had to gain the trust of these men that we'd never met before. And it was about something a long time ago. It was about something kind of controversial. Are they going to be willing to talk? Are they going to be honest? And then it was, well, we'd like to have some recognizable names. Wouldn't it be awesome to have Hank Aaron? But who gets to Hank Aaron? He's got a pretty strong gatekeeper. But all these things, just one thing led to another. So there was just a provision beyond our own efforts that opened the doors for us, and we're really, really grateful.
And those kids really did just walk up at the very end.
They did.
We were just filming, and that's an ending. That's the film's ending, and it was just sort of provided for us. So as hard as it was also, a lot of provision.
I saw.
Let me add too that the reason why we were able to answer these questions, it was really because of Jon Strong. He got right on you, I mean, he just pounded you and pounded you and pounded you and cut one and cut two and cut three. That's the reason why we were able to answer the questions like we did. But I told one of my players, one of our teammates in the movie, I told him, I said, Admiral, I said, if they had done this 30 years ago, we wouldn't have had the experience to answer the questions the way we did. But because we had grown up and been in society, and that's what you do, you gain knowledge from your world. That's what philosophers say, we gain knowledge from our world. Every day we wake up, we ought to learn something new. If we don't, it's been a bad day. And so Jon really drilled us, and I thank Jon for doing that.
You're welcome.
I saw a hand. I think we have time for one last question. Yes.
For the players on the Pensacola team, how many of them stayed in Pensacola and how many of them left, and did they come back?
As of now, we only have three players that are alive in Pensacola, but one chose not to participate, and he was the guy that Stuart talked about getting the hit. When we started filming, we had a guy by the name of Cleveland Daly. He died in 2017. So right now it's only 5 of us still living, but only 3 living in Pensacola, but only 2 took part in the documentary.
Thank you for that question. So as we get ready to close, I want to ask each of you to think through this question. I've gotten to spend time with all of you, and this is a beautiful work of art on the stage. Each of us have a different perspective, come from somewhere different, come from different times. And I want you to offer some wisdom as to what you hope people leave this audience with and do. They've seen this film. What is your hope? And that's for each of you to answer from your perspective, from your angle, from Florida, from Orlando, from Pensacola, Jon as a millennial. What is your take and view that you'd like to leave? You can start.
I'll start, sure. You know, I love Jesus, but I've never quite liked Christian conservatives, fundamentalist Christians. So I was always kind of against Republicans. And because of that, because I thought they were judgmental and would shame people for doing stuff that they didn't like, for dancing or having sex or kissing, you know, whatever. And I didn't like that. And then, you know, now I see the people that I more resonated with doing kind of the same thing, shaming people for not doing what they feel is right morally, for cutting them off relationally because you believe something different than I do, and I don't want to be complicit. So for me, I don't like that. I don't think that change comes through shame. And I think we're just repeating the same mistakes of just cutting people off through shame and morality and hoping that by cutting them off, it'll change them. It doesn't. And so I would hope that everyone here would deal with people that they don't like, be uncomfortable in that, and freaking try and see them as a human, even if you disagree with them, like they're still a human, even if they have just some awful views. Like, it's not complicit to talk to people. It is loving, and it can change people.
Well, I hope tonight, after you all ever watch this movie, that you will have a change in heart. But I remember when Ted came to Pensacola around August 12th, I believe, something like that. And we was having dinner that night, sitting out on the back of the restaurant, and he said to me, he said, Reverend, he says, I just don't know whether God want me to produce this documentary or not. And I said to Ted, if it's good, God approves of it. And so I hope tonight that as you all leave here, that you will become a committee of one. I mean, you got to do it in your own little corner. See, we can't turn the whole world around, but we can turn our own corner around. And if we turn our own corner around, then people will see our light, and then they'll walk up to you and ask you, what happened to you? You say, well, I watched A Long Time Coming last night. And I saw some 12-year-old children that were involved in something that they said it wouldn't be done, or it couldn't be done, or it wasn't going to be done. And they got together among themselves and changed the whole world. Let me say, I think Ted has done a good job, and this documentary will be going to quite a few states in the United States. They'll all get a chance to see it, and they'll be just like Stuart. They'll cry every time they see it.
You know, one of the things that I would mention to you, as a result of that ball game, I know that it made a small step in the city of Orlando. Bob Carr was the following mayor, I believe, and I recall probably when I was 13, maybe 14, a group of black citizens marched on City Hall, and they wanted to just merely establish their rights. Mayor Carr looked over what they had listed out there, and he said, I think y'all are right. And I always felt like that little ball game paved the way for Mayor Carr to say, the signs are coming down. Signs are coming down. You eat at whatever counter you want to. You ride anywhere on the bus that you want to. And that was a major breakthrough for our city. Now, as far as I know, we've never had any major strife. There have been differences, but I've been proud that Orlando agreed way back that they were going to address those. For me, what I would ask of you, you've seen it. You know what the film's about. You need to tell somebody. I've had the opportunity to carry that little flyer around, even with the Uber driver. We're going to the airport, and she said, why are you going to Washington, D.C.? So I'm so glad you asked. Let me share this with you. So God's given me a lot of opportunity to share the story, just one little drop in the bucket at a time. I think we ask you to do the same thing for us. Thank you.
I probably should have talked first because that was all better than anything I have to say. Yeah, I think it's the little things, it's the little decisions. I think in the moment there wasn't anything monumental about this game. It was another decision. We look back and we see its importance. We look back and we see the context, and you heard it from a lot of the players. Well, that's just the way it was, and we can all identify things in our lives. Well, that's just the way it is, and it's what can I do about it? But there's those same things today, and I like to fast forward and think, well, in 50 years, 100 years, looking back, in 2018, what will people say? Well, that's just the way it was. But change happens, and it comes through small decisions of respecting people. We ourselves change. We find ways to cross the aisle, to work together when we're humble, when we listen, when we're honest. And so I know I'm probably preaching to the choir because you're here because you believe those things. So I hope that we walk out of here and find little ways, not ways that's going to make a headline, but ways to respect the other and to find ways to work together.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And again, thank you all for being here. You all have made a difference just by being present. Thank you to my husband and my family that have come as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you all for being here. So please have a good evening.